So I'm going to show you how to spend as little time as possible and still get the highest grades. This is going to be quite a slow paced video. If you're able to follow it the whole way through, hopefully you'll get an understanding of exactly how to start studying. If you're beginning any sort of course, whether it's university, whether it's your GCSEs or your A-levels, if you're at the beginning of this course, right, you can jam-pack your study, you can schedule your studying in a way where the majority of the time you spend at this school or university, you can have your whole days off, right? You just don't have to do anything, you don't have to study. There's only like a week or so at the start where you have to study, maybe a bit near your exams, and pretty much the rest of your time you just spend doing whatever you want, and you won't be bogged down by exam fatigue or cramming at the end of the exam, etc. So this is probably ideal for someone who's like taking their exams right now, figured out that they made a mistake and didn't study enough for them. For example, maybe your GCSEs are going terribly, right? This is great for someone who's going into A-levels next year, and you sort of give it up on your GCSEs, but you're going to have another crack at it for A-levels. And I'll show you exactly what you can do, not only to get extremely good grades, but to do it while barely studying at all. So for step one, it's cram, okay? And this isn't cramming at the end of your exam. Instead of waiting and procrastinating until your exam comes around and then cramming then, what you actually should be doing is you should be cramming at the start of your course. So again, if you're in year 10 or year 12 and you're just starting your GCSEs or your A-levels or whatever course you're taking, this applies to every single thing that you're studying. It could be med school, it could be anything, right? You should be cramming at the start of your course. And you might wonder, like, how am I supposed to cram when I have no idea what I'm learning, right? You're going to have to just go out, find your own study materials, ask the teacher for their PowerPoints or whatever. Your school probably should have a textbook where you can learn everything in advance. But this is probably the most crucial step that about 2% of people or less are doing, right? Literally no one is doing this method. And it's shown in the learning research, right? In the actual scientifically proven studies that this is how you should be doing it. But everyone's too bogged down and obsessed with active recall and spaced repetition, thinking that's how you get good grades, right? Either way, cram, okay? And let's just go through an example, right? Let's say we're doing biology, and we've got this 600-page textbook. To be honest, it's more like 300 pages. I've never had a 600-page textbook, but you've got a 300-page textbook that you're going to sort of go across for the next 2 years or 1 year in your school, and you have access to this. Again, the reason why it's 300 pages is most schools will go at a pace of 1 or 2 pages per lesson, right? And you can see how this sort of fills out an entire 2 years worth of lessons, and you could actually quite quickly learn this in like 3 weeks if you put yourself down to it. What you want to do to cram this, right, you got to give yourself a decent amount of time, like 1 to 3 weeks, to basically get this into your head as much as possible, right? So you have to look at it like you're taking the exam in 3 weeks. What would you do if you're taking the exam in 3 weeks, right? A lot of you might say you just spam past paper questions or exam questions, etc. That's something that you could try as well. It's a similar method, good way to cram at the start. Someone else might just go through and read the most important sections of the textbook and try and build out a mind map from that. So there are maybe 20 topics, or 20 like big topics, and you can just learn the most important topics within those 3 weeks, and then just sort of make links, right? So you can see maybe cells links to lungs, that links to heart, and obviously these two are linked because of the circulatory system. And then you've got linking to, for example, meiosis, which is reproduction, and then mitosis, right? So you're really only, what you're doing here is you're learning the most important topics in this entire course. There's probably quite a few other ones like DNA, and then some offshoots from that, like DNA fragmentation. And obviously these are some much more niche topics that are coming here. You can't really link DNA to lungs, right? But the idea is you get like a map, right? You build out a skeleton of your whole study course. You're going to be learning this over the next 2 years. You might as well have a roadmap and know where you're going to go and how each of these topics link to each other. That's sort of how I would do it. That's how I'd cram this. And I'd learn the most important areas of these different topics. So obviously I'm not gonna be able to get like a B or an A, but I could at most within 3 weeks I could get a D or a C in an exam paper, just by making sure I'm cramming everything, right? And that's what you want to do. If you do that before you start your course, or like as you're starting your course, you're already going to be so far ahead of the rest of your peers, right? And not like you're going to come to these classes and know everything beforehand, because you know it on such a surface level, but your brain is primed. This is literally called priming, this technique. But your brain is primed for the knowledge that is coming at it during these lessons, right? And that's why this step is so important, so crucial, and it's literally going to save you hours and hours of your time, right? And you'll see this in step 2, which is just to fill out the skeleton. This is why you can get away at this point by not studying at all throughout the entire course after you've done this first cramming session. All you have to do is go to the lessons, right, and just fill out the gaps. So what's going to happen is you've got this skeleton of this mind map, right? You've got the entire skeleton of your whole syllabus. You know how different points link to each other. You know sort of in what order you might get taught them. But even then, you know like why you're getting taught them. You know why, if you're learning cells, you know, oh, later down the line I'm actually going to learn about lungs, which is sort of related to this, and the specialized lung cells are giving me some insight into what I'm learning right here. But all you have to do once you've done this priming, right, you're going to notice that you're going to come into lessons and you're naturally just going to be more turned on, right? And a lot of people have this problem. The majority of us, myself included, will go to lessons and we'll just zone out. So I spent all of my sixth form career just sleeping in my lessons. I didn't pay attention to the teachers. I was either talking to someone that was next to me or had my head down on the desk because I just couldn't concentrate. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. There was really no reason in me being there, and by the end of the actual year I just stopped going into school. Like my attendance was like 40% or something like that. And a lot of people face this problem. A lot of people like really struggle to concentrate in a classroom, and it's not because of the noise around them. It's just like there's so much information coming at you, you just have no idea what to do with it. As soon as you slip up and you forget, or you stop listening for like a few minutes, you're just so lost that there's nothing you can do but just sit there and try and look like you're being productive, right? This is the solution to it. So none of this bullshit, this is how you focus, or you need to I don't know, there's just so many different like focusing videos on YouTube that just miss the entire crux of the problem. The problem is you don't know why you're there. The problem is you don't know what you're learning. This step 1 literally solves that problem. So you start cramming before you start the course, as if you're actually taking the course for a reason, as if you're taking a course so you can actually learn about it, rather than just sitting there because you're told to be there. You're going to cram for the course, and you're gonna get an idea of what the hell you're learning, why it might be important, how. I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be interesting as well. You chose this subject. It's probably going to be interesting. Once you've crammed it and you've got the skeleton and you know exactly what you're learning, when the lessons are coming at you, when your teacher is firing up slides and talking about fucking like I'm trying to think of a random biology topic, DNA fingerprinting, right? Like I was sitting in these classes, right, in A-level biology, and I had no clue why we were learning about DNA fingerprinting, because 2 months ago, which was the last time I was actually listening in a lesson, we were learning about how plants would move towards the sunlight, and then suddenly we're talking about DNA fingerprinting and how we can catch criminals and shit like that. I was lost. I just didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know it was even in the biology spec, because it didn't even sound like biology. And I just went back to sleep. But if you've got this skeleton, you're going to be completely fine, right? And you're going to know that it sort of links to this area, and you're going to know why you're learning about this, right? And you're just going to be so much more switched on in your lessons. Yes, you might not. You might have to stop speaking to your friends and mucking about at the back of a classroom. But you're going to save yourself so much time outside of school just by doing this, right? And this is how you get these kids. There are so many students, at least in my experience, that people that just sit in the lesson, they just understand everything, then they don't even have to revise, and they go home, do nothing, and then they come to the exam and they just perform better than everyone else, right? And the reason, it's not because they're cramming, but it's because they're sort of thinking about it in this way. And because we're stupid and we're autistic in some way, we need to do this ourselves, right? We need to do this up front, and then make sure that we're filling out the skeleton in our heads. We're not smart enough to a point where we just have this high brain function and we're able to just do this automatically, which a lot of people will be doing. So the people that you see that don't study and still do well, this is exactly what they're doing without actually doing the actual work, right? Without actually doing the cramming at the start and filling out the skeleton. But that's just how they're thinking, and they might not be able to explain it to you, but that's exactly what's happening. So yeah, I've rambled on a bit there, but this is all you have to do, right? You've got your mind map of the entire subject. You come lesson by lesson and you fill out that mind map and you rejig it around. If you made a mistake on your first cramming session, maybe you thought lungs was linked to DNA fragments somehow, and you made some sort of hypothesis and you thought, yeah, I assume that this is going to link to that in some way. You find out when you come to a lesson that you were completely wrong. You can rejig the mind map, you can change it, and you can just keep building on this one mind map that's got the entire syllabus on it, and you're just working on it throughout your entire year, right? It's like a project rather than you're studying things topic by topic, isolated information. You're learning everything in one go in that sense, and you're understanding why you're learning it, right? And literally, step 3 is, once you finish the whole syllabus, which you'll usually do probably 3-4 months before the actual exams, in a bad case, for example, I know our maths cohort, like they probably didn't even finish the syllabus before they took their exams, but majority of the case you will finish your syllabus before you have your actual exams, right? Once you finish your syllabus, then you can just do exam questions, right? And this is just applying your knowledge. So you'll have a very deep understanding at this point of the entire topic, to the extent almost as deep as the teacher themselves has an understanding. It won't be that deep because you've only learned it once, but that's sort of what you're aiming for, right? If you think about your teacher, if they sat down, your physics teacher, if they sat down and took your exam right now, they would probably get full marks. And they wouldn't have done and practiced or spammed exam questions and Anki flashcards and active recall to try and get that good grade, right? They don't have to do that. They don't have to go through thousands and thousands of practice questions just to get a good grade. The reason they get a good grade is because they just have a fundamental, deeper understanding of physics. And again, they think in this sort of way, where they look at relationships and evaluate relationships, and they know how everything in the subject is linked to each other. And again, they've had some level of practice where they've done these types of questions before, and they understand how to use or how to manipulate data in those questions. But the fact is, it's just their sort of understanding of the actual subject that allows them to get 100%. And that's what you're trying to mimic, right? You're not trying to mimic the top student who is studying 10 hours a day and is spamming flashcards all day every day, and that's why they're getting good grades. You want to mimic the teacher who can just sit down on any given day and take the exam and do better than everyone else. And that's pretty much it, right? You've got these two sections, right? Step 1 and step 2. It will get you a really deep understanding. So you'll understand the topic quite well. You will come to step 3, and you'll sort of figure out, like, okay, I'm still doing kind of bad at exams questions, right? And this is literally just because you have no practice with it. So you understand some of the topics, but you're just missing some of the marks. The mark scheme is being harsh to you. You're not knowing how to answer this line by line, stuff like that. So you're still like underperforming an exam after you've done all of this, but you'll get like a solid B or an A just by doing this cramming and then listening in lessons, right? And this is 0 hours of studying for the entire course. Actually, you spend a decent amount at the start, but the rest of the actual course, like the time you're spending in the course, you're not studying at all, right? So it's significantly less studying than anyone else, and you'll still be able to get like a B, right? And then all you have to do is hone your technique a bit. So you have to do like a few practice papers near the end of when you're coming up to your actual exam, and this is like like no one doesn't do this, right? Everyone goes through the actual past papers before the exam. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing. But like this is just normal stuff. You come to the exam, you try the past papers for that subject. You go through however many there are. There's usually only like 10 or so, like at a maximum. You finish those exam papers, and you actually your brain sort of subconsciously starts to understand how to do these questions and how to answer them. You'll shoot from like a B all the way to an A star, because you have the knowledge. And the only thing you were missing was technique, right? And technique shoots up fast, right? But yeah, hopefully that makes a lot of sense. It's only 3 steps. This is exactly how I'd study if I was starting a new course at university, at college, at sixth form, at school, wherever it is, right? This is how you can save yourself hours and hours of time. You're probably, if you're in an exam season right now and you're spending 6+ hours a day trying to cram all the information down because you just wasted so much time, just keep this video in your like watch later or something like that. Make sure you come back to this video, and you don't have to struggle this much. You don't have this, academics doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be a walk in the park, and this is exactly how it can be a walk in the park. So don't do yourself harm. Again, don't make the same mistake as you did this time. Next time, use these 3 steps and you will do better than everyone else. Okay, goodbye.